OK, we are talking about the cost of leaving crisis. Experts are saying that the cost of living crisis is causing unhappy couples to stay together for the sake of their bank balance. In fact, being single apparently costs an extra £10,000 a year. So, would you stay in a relationship to save cash? Now, I think that's different from do you stay in a relationship because you can't afford to leave? And I think there's a lot of people in that situation.
Oh, yeah, and that'll be a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of people. But do you look at, and Sunetra, you're in a kind of weird old situation, aren't you, if you don't mind me saying?
Yeah, I'm trying to work out. So I kind of have the worst of both worlds and the best of both worlds. So I, just for a quick snapshot of my life, Scott and I live together apart. We're married, but I live in Bristol.
You're not making this up, are you? This isn't one of your dramas.
And then the aliens came down. No, I live in Bristol with Noah. For 1 week I'm single, 1 week I'm married. So Scott and I do 1 week together, 1 week apart. He lives in his house with his kids for 1 week, and then he comes and joins me and Noah for 1 week, and that's how we work. So I am running a single household on my own and living the life of probably the financial side of a single woman. Similarly, we go on holiday and we're a family of 5 and we're paying for the family to go on holiday. So I'm not a single woman now. I'm getting the extra costs of having a husband, family and everything else. So it's interesting to say that money does come into the question a lot. I mean, unless you are in a position where I've just stayed in the position I was after I got divorced and this is the household I set up. And I have kept my relationship outside of that in a way. And I think it is expensive. And I do think that there are a lot of women who know that it's expensive and so they do stay at home more. And also the school postcodes, that's a massive deal breaker for some people, you know, really. You know, you want your children to go to the school that you live in the house with your husband because of that school. And then you realise you want to separate, and then where are you going to live? You can't afford to stay in the same postcode, and the kids can't go to the... So there's so many things that cost a lot when you think about leaving.
And things have changed so much, haven't they? I mean, you speak about this a lot, Mylene. We still kind of hark back to some... Well, I was going to say golden period. I don't think it was. The man was the main breadwinner and the woman wasn't earning as much, and then it's about...
Well, women didn't have a bank account, or they and they didn't have the vote, and they didn't... You know, there were so many things they just didn't have, and that's when the laws for marriage were written. So we blindly... And it is blindly, because we walk down the aisle and we say these vows, not in a legal setting, in the church or a blessing or wherever else, but then you're duty-bound by them, and suddenly you're reading the small print, and... I mean, I got divorced, and I know it's different because we were talking about some cannot afford to have that divorce, but crikey, it is very expensive. And, I mean, it was written on a Post-it note, expensive for me. So when they figured, as in, this is how much I'm going to need, and I'm processing... what's going on, but when they've figured out already how much they're going to need, and then actually when you bring in lawyers and you bring in what they're entitled to under this law that was written as the woman not being the breadwinner, and then when you become it, then suddenly...
Very different.
It's very different because you're also still the one who has the children. So it's not a modern law, and we live by that. But then it's funny, it's interesting. A lot of people said, well, now you know what it feels like to be the guy, like you're the poster campaign now. But the guy doesn't necessarily get the children, rightly or wrongly, good or bad, but you know, you're playing every single role, and we can't afford that. So I really, my heart really does go out to we were talking about it, it's not 50% that get divorced, it's 77% now that get divorced.
Really?
My heart goes out to you, because it's painful and it's expensive.
But that's the thing, we talk about love and relationships and everything. We don't like to talk about pounds, shillings and pence kind of in the same bracket, do we? Because we go all kind of gooey-eyed, but you kind of have to, because that is the realities of life. I mean, Judy, if a man were ever fortunate enough to have
glad
your
you said
hand...
it, Chris.
And I can't believe there's such a man out there, to be honest. But, I mean, what would you think about money or not?
Well, yes, definitely. I think finance has to come into place, whether it doesn't matter, either one of you is the bigger breadwinner or whatever. There's things that you're going to want to plan and possibly, you know, do together and build on. You've got children. But I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine. He's, like, quite financially stable, and he was talking about marriage, and he was saying, but marriage in your 20s is different. You might want to build with someone. At this age, in your career and so on, you've kind of built yourself, and so maybe would be the person who you're with. So why you need to think about what is the marriage about? Is it about the ego? Is it about the showing off? Is it about the dress? And yes, I'd love to get married, but I'm actually quite content in doing a blessing, because I think it's about the love, the commitment, the declaration to your family and those close-knit loved ones to say that this is what you're committed to.
Yeah.
And I think from there you can, you know, build on what you have together and build on what you have separately, and then you don't have to go through all of that drama that you
Well,
lot
you're right,
put in.
because you used to get married, you used to have a wedding list.
Yeah,
so people would,
list.
you didn't have anything to consolidate. You'd just be starting together at the same sort of time.
Same time as that. But I think it's sad that, you know, that it's unfortunate, I shouldn't say sad, that people are in situations where they are staying in relationships because of the finance.
Well, we did a poll on this, actually, and 26% of the people who responded said they had stayed in a relationship because of financial necessity.
Absolutely,
to do
because you do have to find a whole new set of everything. It's not just cutlery and plates, it's a roof above your head, it's beds, I mean, the cost of everything has to be duplicated.
And some people are going back to live with their parents, and that's a killer if you're in your 40s or 50s, or sharing in a bedsit with students who are starting out while you're then trying to rebuild. It's a lot.
What you said earlier, you were saying something about the other losses, which is not just financial.
Oh, I said it's not even just a financial loss. We're saying that actually what it costs you emotionally as well. It hits you, especially as women in this, it really hits you on every single level. And, of course, you're becoming a single parent, and that's terrifying, because if you haven't had a blueprint for it...
but it's also very rewarding, and I don't want us to put people off from people who are thinking of leaving, who need to leave, you know, they also need to be encouraged.
Look, hands down, it's the best thing that happened to me and my kids, because we got a chance. I wouldn't go as far as to say thank you, because it wasn't made easy, but it certainly gave me a chance to go, right, this is how we're going to be able to grow and live.
Just go on the first date and say, can I see your credit score, please? Like,
great idea.
As ever, Judy has the answer, which is fabulous.